All right, so we are talking about physics and creating a Rube-Goldberg machine. So, as I mentioned, the aesthetics do matter. So we're going to make it look really cool. I've created some lights in this scene that are spotlights that are kind of pointing down like that, with a skylight that's got kind of a purplish hue to it. So I think it looks pretty cool. My directional light is right there. You can see I can adjust the angle, but I kind of dig the way that's going. So first off, just so you know, when you hit play and you're in simulate mode, you can kind of nudge things around. So if you want to like get your marble launched off or see what it does when it hits certain things, you can always play with it that way, um, to kind of get a better feel. So let's say that when you're doing your physics, you want to create like a cube that makes that a rectangle, of course. It only pivots in one direction. So when I bump that up and I turn on physics, because it's clipping the floor right there, what's going to end up happening is it's going to jump out. And the more that I'm in the floor, the more that is going to like have a pretty explosive reaction. And that's when you see things like that in games. So what's happening there is it doesn't know how to react to being, where it's not supposed to be. So if I hit end, that'll resolve that issue. Unfortunately, this probably also means that because we have that big bump right there, this thing's not going to be able to get up. So I might need to, at this point, take something that's not a physics actor. Let me turn off my snaps right now. And maybe bring that down here so I have a little ramp for the ball to be on. Let's push that over there. And that'll allow this to move up without there being any clipping. So let me put that over here for now. What do I do if I want this ramp to only pivot, one direction? I can turn on physics, but I'm going to turn off gravity. And I'm going to go into the constraints and I'm going to lock the position. So right now, all that's going to happen is it's going to be allowed to pivot, to move. But it's not going to be able to, you can see it goes like that. And so maybe that's what I want. I don't know. But you have to have just the right amount of force applied to this ball. So I could create a ramp for the ball and drop it down, or I could create a radial force. Let's do that. And I want this radial force to be directly behind this ball so that it pushes it straight that way. And if you want your radius to be bigger on this radial force, you can do so. But what really matters is this force strength. And it's going to need to be pretty big. So I'm talking 99999. Let's see what happens when I hit simulate there. All right, so I might need to have another 9 to it because I want to go up all the way up the ramp. And that's too much. So I have to delete one of those 9s, and then I have to just kind of play around with like, let's put a 0 in there. Still too much, so let's change this first 9 to a 1. And that's getting pretty close. Let's change the first 9 to a 2. Okay, so let's say that's what I want. Now it's tipping over on the red one, which is you can see it's at the x-axis, and you can tell by looking up here, if you rotate it, that number will change. Oh, let me get into the transform. There we go. Okay. So I don't want that to change at all. So I'm going to lock the rotation of the x-axis. I want it to rotate only on this axis right here, which is the y. So I want to uncheck y and leave z checked as well. So let's see what happens when I hit play. Okay, cool. So at that point, something here is happening that I want it to. So maybe when this falls down, it's going to hit something that's going to, I don't know, do something else. So I could put a object down here that responds to the force, maybe like a cylinder that turns when it's hit right on that edge. So I'm hitting ends. I'm going to line these guys up. Let's get that a little bit thinner. Oops. Shrink it down and elongate it. And a little thicker. Okay. And then you just got to kind of play around with where exactly this is going to hit it. So once again, I forgot to make this a physics actor. And should be pretty close. Let's see what happens. Okay. So that got pushed. If I wanted this ball not to go any further, I could put a maybe cube above this that would block the ball, but not the cylinder. So let's see what happens. Okay, well, sometimes it's going to work and sometimes it's not. It really, there's a lot of kind of factors involved here. I'm just going to push it over just a little bit more. Let's try one more time. Okay. So you just got to find that sweet spot. And then again, hit end to get it right on the ground. For some reason, this thing is, oh, it's rotated. Oh, that's frustrating. I can always come up here and check the rotation and just make sure it's set to, looks like 90 degrees. And let's try hitting end again. Let's see what happens now. Okay, so I'm getting close. So close. Okay, so that goes over there now, and this ball goes off its merry way, and then maybe at this point, I could start off with like a little domino action here, and maybe my first domino is going to be very small. So maybe I'll just stick that right here between, turn on physics, let's see what happens. Because it's getting hit from the bottom, I was afraid it was going to roll the wrong way, but it didn't. So then I could go maybe a little bit bigger. Oops. Keep it nice and thin, so I'll just grab it by these two axes. A little bit bigger. And then maybe a little bit bigger. Hopefully it'll have enough force to do what I need it to do. So there's the first one, there's the second one, and maybe give these a little bit more space. And I might just need to make that one a little bit smaller, but here we go. Let's see what happens. Cool. Now we have chain reaction, and then a lot of students are wondering, how do I do something cool at the end? So let's just say that when all this is said and done, and I've created my Rube-Goldberg device, I'll put another sphere here, nice and small. Just push that off to the side here. So this, let's just say that this is like our, let me turn the physics on, last kind of piece of the machinery. Let's see what happens. It didn't work. Sometimes it's going to happen. Just the physics are a little unpredictable in this engine. They don't do the same thing more than twice, which is kind of cool. So then this ball will move. Right now, this ball is too heavy. You can actually adjust the mass. So I'm going to set the mass down to 10, and then this ball is going to be able to move no problem when it gets bumped by anything. because it has so little mass. So think of like a plastic ball or something. Still having issues, huh? Let's change the mass to 1. And I'll set the linear dampening to 0. That'll decrease the friction, so it'll makes it easier for it to move. And oops, let's try that one more time. There we go. Now the ball goes. And let's say that right here, when the ball hits this platform, something exciting happens. So I'll just set this material to something cool, like I don't know, gold. Give that a second to render. Make this one. If I just type in metal, I can see my chrome. I like that. And maybe all these cubes. If I wanted to, I can just select all these cubes at once and change them to a material. Let me show display both. Maybe I want all these to be. What's clay look like? Brick? Nah. How about wood? Oak. Okay. And because I've stretched my material, my stuff, some of the materials are going to look a little odd, but that's okay. All right. And I don't really like the way this gold looks. I wonder if there's another one. No. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so the question is, how do I make it so that something happens when this ball hits this right here? Here's what we're going to do. There's a lot of steps, so pay attention. We have to first go into our collision, and we have to say simulation generates hit events to both of these objects, so that when they hit each other, something is going to happen if we tell it to. So let's watch. Okay, so now an event will occur, but I have to tell it what event to occur. So I'm going to right click on here, and I'm going to go add an event on actor hit. And that's this cube right here. And it's going to take us to our blueprints. And so let's say something happens when this hits this. And maybe that thing that happens is an explosion, which already exists in our content. So I'll take the explosion, I'll put it here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to deactivate it by going into the explosion and choosing activation and unchecking it. So nothing's going to happen in the game until I tell it to. Now I'm going to take that explosion from my world outliner and drag it into here and say, when that cube is hit, I want to activate this. So I'm going to drag this blue dot up, type in activate, particle system component, and then tie those together. Now, if I hit play here, I should see this trigger. Oops, you guys couldn't see that because I was on the other window. You should see that trigger right here. There it is. And let's watch it in game. Sometimes it gets launched not quite correctly. Probably a ramp would be more reliable if you wanted consistent results with the ball. There it goes, and boom, there's our explosion. So I don't know if I did that off screen or not. So once again, the code for the explosion you can find in your blueprints for your level. And it's, you take the cube that you want when it has a hit event. You right click on it, add an event, on actor hit. And then from there you drag your explosion into here. Like that. And then from the explosion pin, you type in activate. And it'll say activate particle system. And then tie this to the activate. This is a function. This is an event. We'll get way more into that later. But I now have this, and if I want to time it, 1, 1000, 2, 1003, 1004, 1005, 1006, 1007, 1008, 1000, 9, 1000, 10, 1000, 11, 1000, 12, 1000. So I'm only 12 seconds, and I have basically one event that leads to this. This thing gets hit, that's 2. Then I got 3, and then I got 4, and then 5. So I'm only halfway to the 10 that I need, and my time is much slower than I need it to be. So definitely get a little bit more elaborate and think about where else you can go. I've seen a lot of students put a board up, something like this, and just turn that into the light a little bit. And what you can do from here, you can have a lot of fun doing like a cube. Ooh, having this turn is going to be a problem. Oh well. You could have a cube that you could, stretch and elongate and stuff and make it into a ramp. Put your sphere here. And turn on physics to that. Let's make that a little bit thinner and a little bit longer. And then you could create kind of a series of, an obstacle course or whatever, make this as elaborate as you want. So maybe it goes from here and then it turns that way. And it should stay, relatively close, but if you wanted to, you could put like rails on this. So like bring this back up, pull this over, rotate it, so that keep it like kind of in a chute so it doesn't accidentally fall out, and have it go back and forth, have it hit, pins, whatever you want it to do. And that's definitely a viable way to kind of start vertically and kind of work your way down some obstacle course that way. If you can somehow combine the two, that'd be great. You could put a ball over here that somehow this makes its way to and then hits that. Be as elaborate as you want.